The United States entered World War I on April 6, 1917. A blindfolded President Woodrow Wilson picked the first draft number, and before it was over, 2 million Yanks would cross the Atlantic to fight in France against Kaiser Wilhelm's Germany.
That was the only Hearst newsreel film I could find on YouTube, so I put it in. Plus, I love those things. They always remind me of John Lovitz's voice a lot from The Brave Little Toaster. So let's go. I want to do a couple things in this segment. I do want to talk about Hayley Mills because it had to been. You just said you had a boyhood crush on this girl from The Parent Trap. Was it from The Parent Trap or subsequent stuff? Or
no, I had seen Pollyanna, and that was fine. But Parent Trap was the one that was really like, oh my God, yes.
I was the same way with Ann-Margret. Like, I remember watching Bye Bye Birdie, and it suddenly made sense to me, like what was going on in my brain and what was going on below my waist. Like those two. Oh, I get it now. There's some. Oh, I see now.
The Ann-Margret moment was when she was changing into her sweater and jeans, like
that. And for whatever reason, maybe because my parents left the room during the credits, it's when she sang Bye Bye Birdie at the end
with the fan blowing, with the hair,
with that blue screen behind it. It's just like, what is going on here? Something crazy's happening.
I'm with you.
So, but Hayley Mills, but then you go on and you got to write The Parent Trap too. And you become really, really, like legitimately really good friends with her. That's got to be, and that's an emotional accomplishment, certainly.
No, it still to this day does not make sense to me. And her email is Hayley Mills with numbers and stuff at Gmail. And if I wake up in the morning and open my phone and there's an email that says Hayley Mills, it's like, what?
Yes.
And at this point, the last time we were together last January, when she was here to get her honorary Oscar and promote her autobiography, we're having brunch, and it's she and my wife and I, and she and her boyfriend, longtime boyfriend, and the four of us are just having breakfast. And at some point, I'm like, yeah, but I'm sitting here. I mean, there was a time in my life where my bedroom wall was papered with pictures of this woman, and now I'm sitting here with my friend having breakfast, and it's like.
Did she, and we'll move on because I want to talk about the book. I am curious because one of my childhood freakouts where I was so scared was watching her father in Great Expectations. Like, it scared me. I don't know why my father took me to that movie, but he took me to that movie. It was playing at some weird art house, and it really scared me. Did she talk much about her family? Because her sister's an actress and her dad, John Mills, and
yeah, and I mean, what's the dearest thing in the world, which you will relate to more than anybody, she and her sister Juliet are like Jano and Chrissy.
Right.
Juliet actually lives in Ojai, but they are in touch every minute. She comes over to spend time with her. They've toured all of England and Australia doing plays together. And Juliet has been married a year longer than I have, so more than 40 years, to Maxwell Caulfield.
Yes, who was on Southern Beach, and all I did was bug him questions about his father-in-law.
Yeah.
He was very nice.
Yeah, I know, he's a lovely guy, but the three of them have done plays together, so they're an incredibly tight family. And John lived into his mid-90s and was still doing a one-man show in his 90s, and she was always promoting that. And yeah, they're just a phenomenally close and dear family.
Wow, that's so great. So let's talk about, well, actually, tell me, I want to do one more story about, this is about meeting celebrities, because again, it goes back to the beginning of your career. And now, as a writer, and especially back then, now you do Zooms, but you would go to producers' houses, directors' houses, actors' houses. I remember we went to a reading of a script at Goldie Hawn's house. That was cool.
Yeah.
You went to Alan Carr's house for Where the Boys Are.
Yes.
So just tell that story. I just love that story. First of all, it's Alan Carr's house.
Yeah. So I don't know how much context we need for your audience in terms of who Alan Carr was, but he was a phenomenally flamboyant producer. He produced Grease. He had the home that Brett Ratner actually bought from, I mean, I think there's owners in between, but it was a hilltop estate that had its own name and its own napkins. And if you would go for a meeting at Alan's house, there was always houseboys that were kind of like the Hank Azaria character in the Birdcage.
Fantastic. And also, anytime you go to a house that has a name, It's like, okay, I'm moving up.
Totally. And they would come out, you want anything to drink? Yeah, I'll take a Coke. And they would come out with a silver tray with the dome with your glass of Coke on it and stuff like that. So at this point, 1984, it was even earlier because we were writing the script. So probably 82. So, I had not been in LA all that long, and I'm still the Rochester boy at heart. And Alan was also renowned for, he wore caftans.
Yes, this is what I love.
He was a short, portly fella. And I was Me Too'd before I knew I was. And again, I was such a Rochester boy. It took me days to even realize what happened. But anyway, I'm at a meeting and we're talking story, and he's sitting across from me in his caftan. And suddenly the caftan gets hiked and the legs get spread, no underwear involved. And I'm like, I don't know where my eyes go. I don't know what my heart's doing. I don't know what's happening right now, but I'm trying to keep talking about this. So anyway, in scene 16, I think we should. And then it was like, check, please, and I left. And it was just, to me at that point, it was kind of funny. It was just like, I can't believe that just happened, but I didn't feel incredibly violated or traumatized. It was just like, damn, did that really just happen?
You got he too'd. I don't know if that's an expression, but
it should be.
It should be. So you have this incredible career, and I don't want to go on too long about teaching, and because I've gotten into some teaching and it's really fun. I do want to talk about the novels, because that's a whole other, like, teaching it's an art form. It's kind of an art form to itself, and it's really important to do it for a lot of reasons. As well as, I think it makes you a better writer. Would you agree with that?
100%.
So then you take the leap and you write your first novel. So how did that happen? Like, what possessed you?
I will tell you exactly, because it was a very clean path, which was the first year and a half that because I taught for 20 years, one class a year at the Peter Stark producing program at USC. I was really loving that. I wanted to teach more. I met with a friend who was teaching. He told me to go to the Chronicle of Higher Education website. I did. A posting for the position at UC Riverside popped up, looking for somebody with film experience and and teaching experience.
And you had a master's. Didn't you have a master's?
I did not.
Oh, you did not?
Okay. I did not. And that was part of the controversy of my hiring. There was one member of the faculty at UCR that was very against my hiring because I did not have a master's.
They like people in the club.
Yeah. And everybody else in the faculty said he's got 30 years teaching what we're hiring him to, practically practicing what we're hiring him to teach. Right. That's going to be invaluable to our students. The one naysayer got overridden. And he's since passed, so this story doesn't have as much value, but I was told when I was up for tenure at that meeting, he said, you all know I was against this hire, and I think it's one of the smartest things we did. I'm voting.
Okay. Good for him.
And somebody else on the faculty told me that after the fact, which was very lovely. But anyway, so when I got that job, that was a full-time tenure track position. And the first year and a half I was doing it, I was also the head writer and story editor on Toot and Puddle, an animated show for Nickelodeon. So doing that meant I was now working 90 hours a week, doing the show and teaching full-time. And it was like, this is not what I signed on for. And, I'm a big believer in the universe talking to you. And my agent at Paradigm at the time called me partway through and he said, I'm making a segue into managing. Do you want me to introduce you to other agents here? And I said, you know what? No, this is the perfect time for me to go. Been there, done that. Right. I want to focus on teaching. I'm a writer. I will always write. But if I write a book, I can do it when I can do it. I can do it over summer. If it takes 7 years to finish, who cares? It's not how I'm making my living.
And also at this point, I don't know that the show you were referring to, but I know you had been at Disney for a long time under contract. And, it's not the greatest place to work. So it's just not, anybody will tell you that.
Is there a reason they call it Mauschwitz?
Yeah. And so that had to be another factor too, for you to say, okay, we're done. No, we're done.
The we're done there was I had at that point done 12 Disney Channel original movies for them. I had a project in development with Raven Simone who had come to me with it. We took it to them. They bought it in the room. At some point, they decided to put it in turnaround, but did not want to tell either of us. And I found out so circuitously backdoored. And it was like, you guys, we made 12 movies together and you don't have the decency to call me up and tell me, so it was like, Peace
Yeah.
out. It's been
That's
good.
sort of how they are. That's everything. And then they just kind of go like, yeah, sorry, but we really like you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So those things all combined were like I said, I'm a writer. I will always write. The book I have control over. The book doesn't have a deadline. The book doesn't have a page thing. So, I kind of tossed this off, but in fact, that one cigarette was 7 years in the making. Part of it was there was a lot of research involved. The other part was in the middle of it. I was department chair for 3 years and I had no time to do anything. And then, finished it when I finished it and got a publisher and got it done.
And so tell everybody what that book is about, because I really loved it. But again, I'm partial because it's JFK and Jason. So
yeah. So one thing that always intrigued me is I was always interested in the choices we make at pivotal moments in our lives and the path we take and what's directing us where. So the premise of it was it's 4 families in 4 different places around the world who their lives finally intersect in the final chapter, but all the way through you don't know how or why. But the jumping off point is the idea that our hero, Ed Callahan, is working at the Texas Book Depository on November 22nd, 1963, and ends up preventing Oswald from killing Kennedy. And then it's the ripple of, because that didn't happen, what else didn't happen? And why are these 4 characters the pivotal people that have made those turns in history that finally intersect together in 2008?
Yeah. And ultimately, they're really wonderful characters, and it's a great story. And anyway, but you've got a new book, and it's very different.
Very different.
So tell us about that.
All right. In the viewing audience, it is Raft.
Very good.
And what Raft is.
Hold that up again. Let me see that. That's really cool. Who did the cover?
This publishing company that I've worked with, Pipevine Press, has been amazing. So it was an internal artist that did the cover design. The only thing that I said to them is I kind of have a Roy Lichtenstein vision of a pop arty kind of thing. And this is what they came back with. And after I tell this part of the story, I'll hold it up one more time, because what Raft is, it's the story of children's book author Clark Whitaker, who is turning 50, having a midlife crisis. His son is leaving for college. His father-in-law just died. He's having this moment of, is everything now forward going to be about loss? I'm not ready for that. He's having some difficulties in his career. He and his wife get in a tremendous fight. He goes to bed. He wakes up the next morning and he's a penguin.
Right.
No reason, no magic, no Zoltar machine. He just, how I sold it to the publisher was, some men leave their wives for a younger woman, some buy a sports car, some take up mountain biking. Clark Whitaker became a penguin. Shit happens, deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the premise of the book.
That's great. Okay, so both those books, you can buy them both on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Again, I'm talking to Stu Krieger. You can look at him at on Instagram at Stu Krieger, and TikTok too. Is there some TikTok action?
Yeah, same that.
Especially if you're a Land Before Time freak, and I know you're out there listening. We're going to talk some more about Stu's career when we come back. I want to talk about his family, because that's how we met. And we'll do that on the other side of this break. You are I'll plug Sprung on Amazon Freebie. I should always do that. The show I worked on, that's on hold right now because of our writer's strike. That's a whole other discussion. This is actually the first strike I'm behind. I don't know how you feel, but this is the first one where I'm just like, we need a recalibration here of this.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, we're taking a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack.